marriage make a difference? And so I invite all of you to come up here. And since almost everybody knows you, but not everybody knows you, you might just say a couple words of introduction for yourselves.
So let's put the chairs on the road, shall we? So that they can pass the mic to one another. Let's pull it closer, please. So, good morning. We will each introduce ourselves. I'm Charlene Ball, and when the Program Guild first, can you hear me all right? Okay. When the program first asked us to do a panel on marriage, they were thinking about gay marriage, but they said, well, you could include gay or straight or queer or whatever. So we first thought about getting a couple of lesbian and gay couples, but nobody that we asked was available. So we went back to that, So we decided to get a heterosexual couple to talk with us so that there would be a variety of experiences here. So first I'm going to let, let's see, am I going to tell my story first or? Yeah, I'll tell my story first. Okay, so we have some questions. One question is, why did you decide to get married? And we can combine this with, has your idea of marriage changed over the years? And I would say for myself, after getting out of a long-term relationship, I only wanted to be alone and independent. I didn't want to date. I didn't want to get involved with anyone. I just wanted to live alone with my animals and be happy. And so then I met Libby, and she was in my writers group. And we were friends. We drove back and forth to First D and to Writers. And then we got a little closer, and finally we got together and were dating. And we still neither of us believed in marriage, because I had never, believed in marriage. I always thought it was a patriarchal system that really didn't benefit women very much, and I didn't like the hierarchical aspects of it, so I didn't want to get married. But then the possibility of getting married came up, and I heard myself say to Libby one time, well, if I ever married anyone, it would be you. And then a little bit later, we started talking about, well, maybe we should get married. Maybe we'd like to get married. And so as soon as it was legally possible, we did. And that was in 2016, I believe it was. We were married here by Marcia. And so, well, I'll answer the question of does it make a difference later. So now let's pass the baton to Libby.
I'm Libby Ware, and I was also, never thought I'd get married, although I had a brief marriage in the 70s. I was scared and nervous the whole time it was happening, and frankly, the person who became my husband had to talk me into it every night. So that didn't last. And when activists started, pursuing gay marriage, I thought, well, that's not what we should be putting all our energy into. We shouldn't have a system where you have to get married to get health care or other benefits. That should be available to everyone. And so, I had a lot of talks with Charlene and other people about this, about why are we putting all our energy into this. But it passed. The Supreme Court, approved of it. It's amazing. And so that was just, I think it really lends a lot of legitimacy to gay marriage or to relationships. I can go somewhere and refer to my wife, and some people, depends on what town I'm in, whether people do a double take or not. So that was kind of the evolution, and I won't dispute what Charlene said about us getting married, except that when she said, if I were going to marry anyone, it would be you, that really, it lifted my heart. It really was, kind of exciting that she had said that, and I didn't forget it.
So I'm Stell, and Wade and I, is this working? Yeah. Wade and I have been married since 1987, so we're going on 38 years. So I'm just waiting to hear what is going to come out of my mouth now. So the question is, why did we get married? Well, we fell in love, and I was working at a newspaper. He applied for a job there. I interviewed him. He was very attractive, and there's something really mysterious about falling in love. I mean, I had a dream right before we got married in which I was swept away by a tidal wave. So that kind of says what, it's still inexplicable to me what falling in love is. But there was also the fact that it was at the right time of our lives. We'd had romantic relationships before, but they weren't at the right time. I was in my early 30s, I think I was 30, and I always knew that I wanted children and a family, and so it did not occur to me not to get married. So that's the story of straight marriage.
Well, I grew up in Ohio in a small rural town, and my answer to the question, there's various layers, but I think a real big component of why I got married would be acculturation. In a small rural town, I mean, farmers and, small business people, and my dad was a mail carrier, my mother was a teacher, and this was the cycle of life. You were born, you were raised, you had infatuation, you got married, you raised a family, and you worked a lot, and you died. And that's what everybody did. So I don't think it occurred to me as a young man that I would do anything but be a high school basketball coach and be married and raise a family. Holly Near said the same thing. We had a little concert in Columbus, Ohio when I lived there, and it would be like a small, intimate concert. Imagine Holly Near having a concert right out here in this yard. There were only about 150 people at the concert. She was right there, this famous singer-songwriter, and she said, there's so much pressure to get married, and some of us just decide not to, and that's all right, and we should be respected. And I agree with Libby. Anyone that doesn't get married should also have the benefits, like the benefit of marriage that if I die before Stell, my pension will go like 80% to her. That's automatic with my pension system. Well, someone who's not married should be able to say, oh, my pension will go to my brother or my sister or my favorite friend in the neighborhood. I mean, all these restrictions are restrictions, I think, on freedom. And so I'm off in a digression there, but so I began to think maybe I'll never get married, when I was 27, 28 years old, and I had a series of, living with women who then in that situation, serial monogamy, you have the option, I guess, to say, well, this isn't working for me and move on. And so I didn't feel real good about that. But a friend of mine, Jim McNamara, said that a friend of his was visiting his father on his deathbed, and his father said, "Son, are you still seeing that girl?" And he said, yeah, Dad, I am. In fact, we're planning to get married. And the old man just struggled to get up on his elbow and moved in close and said, "Don't ever get married." So, I just met Stell. She is and was a beautiful person inside and out. Our first date was this band. She said, "I want to see this band." In Little 5 Points, it was the Indigo Girls. I said, "This woman has good taste in music, at least." You know. And so, yeah, that's the story of a straight marriage.
So now I'd like to ask the question, the title question, does marriage make a difference? And I have to say, I'm afraid Libby and I will probably say the same thing. I'll try not to. But it has made a difference in ways that we never really thought that it would. And I don't know whether that's because culture is so powerful or whether it's just something about knowing that you have made a commitment in front of people and that the people have agreed, like they do in religious services, and ours did too, to support your marriage and to support your union. And somehow that just seeped into our lives. We knew that we were a unit. We knew, even though we had been before, we knew that it was a cultural unit. We were a team now, for sure. And that would last as long as we wanted it to or needed it to, and maybe longer. And the other thing is that we were glad to give. I was very glad that my pension allowed me to have very good health care, better than she did, so I was able to give that to her. And again, I think everybody should have it. It should not be what people get only on marriage, but since that's the way of it, I was very glad that she got that and that I get benefits from hers now. So there are these material and real benefits too. And let me pass this on to Libby.
Yeah, there are economic benefits, but mainly it does feel like a deeper commitment. And we wrote our own vows, and I can't remember all of them, but 2 of them that I think is very important is to give each other the benefit of the doubt. And the second one is, and I don't remember exactly how this is worded, maybe you do, but that if we do get to a point where we want to separate, that we would respect each other and, treat each other kindly. Do you remember?
Yes.
Is that about how it went?
I think so.
Okay. And I remember my mother called me from the airport, and she says, I was thinking about your vows, about that one about having respect for each other, if you had to end it. So I think that kind of impacted maybe some of the people that heard it also. So, and as I said before, I think it gives your relationship more legitimacy, and people are very accepting. And I think it's kind of like, despite what's going on out there in the Supreme Court, maybe getting something to overturn it, it's kind of like the best time to be a married lesbian, because right now people are in favor of it, most of the people I meet.
Let me say one more thing. And it's so easy to come out. You don't have to make a big declaration about yourself. You just have to say, oh, my wife and I did such and such, or this is my wife, Libby, and then people know.
Well, I think it's clear this is a pro-marriage panel. But, everyone is free to have their own opinions. So the question within that question was, how has your idea of marriage changed over time? I will say that when Wade and I first got married, one of the concerns I had was about falling into sort of preordained roles, mostly about who did what kind of work in the household. And that was one of the sources of conflict, I think, for us in our marriage. But now I don't give a damn. I mean, we can work it out. I'm not as concerned about those things now, 38 years into it. Let's see, there was one other thing that's changed. What was it? Yeah, okay. So does marriage make a difference? So our children, we have 2 daughters, both are in long-term relationships with men, and they're clearly committed for life, it seems like. They bought houses together, et cetera, et cetera. But neither of them has married. They don't think there's any point to it. So I have been thinking about that whole subject. And so marriage is something that has been part of human culture for eons, and up until recently, it was always thought of as a man and a woman. And I don't dismiss the symbolism of that. To me, symbols have enormous power. They're mysterious. There are all kinds of undercurrents. Sometimes I think about that symbol of yin and yang, the circle with the white part and the black part, and it's like this is a coming together, it's a union, and it symbolizes something larger than itself. It's like 2 parts come together and the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And I think about Shakespearean comedies, these plays end with the coming together of the man and woman, and it represents something larger. I think about the wedding service, and we adapt those traditions to our modern needs, but they're charged with energy, they're charged with emotion, and each symbol, if you look at it, from the bride's dress to the walking down the aisle to the maids and the groomsmen, all of these things express something. So I put a lot of store in rituals, and we may not understand the symbolism, but it courses through our lives, sort of under the surface. So those are the things I think about. Oh, and in marriage, the one other difference I would say that marriage makes is because you have made a commitment in front of a community of people, you've brought them into this relationship as well in a certain way, that when things get rough, you've got a structure to lean on. I mean, it's just harder to get divorced than it is to split up if you're not married. So, and I do see that as something helpful to a couple, even though, of course, sometimes people do need to split up, and it can be difficult. But I think the structure has I feel good about being in this structure. It's something to lean on.
And I agree with that. And a while back, I wrote these lines, meaning in life were the choices I made. My art and the struggle for all to be free. And I think that in that way, marriage isn't necessarily making a difference, because again, anyone can do that, married or unmarried, gay or straight. So in terms of finding meaning in life and happiness, it doesn't necessarily, it's not a requirement. It's to make a difference. In my life, it made a difference in that I suddenly, like Joni Mitchell says, I looked at love from both sides now, from give and take. And I think that that's a real important part that I had to learn, probably, moving from serial monogamy to marriage, that you have to accommodate the style of the other person, and there's something greater that comes out of that family and this unit that's known as Stell and Wade. And so it makes a difference in that way. That's, how I feel about it.
And I never thought I'd be on a pro-marriage panel.
So I guess we can conclude what we have to say, because Stell and Wade have given me a great deal to think about, particularly because I also am very much connected with ritual and myth and stories. So I'll have to think a while about what marriage means when it is, when you have the mythical one gender and the other have only the two genders, but that can encompass everything also. And I'll have to think about how a single gender archway can also encompass opposites and differences. So now I'd like to open it up a little bit. We have a little time. I'd like to ask if anyone in the congregation would like to say anything, and would someone carry the mic if anyone does want to say something. Oh, Susan. Does anyone have any? Jan?
Thanks. I was never a big believer in marriage, but I kind of am now. And maybe not for the right reasons. I really wanted my daughter to get married. She was living with a guy in California, and he is an up-and-coming director, and he's actually pretty well known in the horror genre. He's got quite the cult following. And they're both in the film industry. And they lived together for quite a while. And I kept telling her, you need to get married. And my thought was community property. I don't want her screwed. So I'm kind of looking out for my girl. And not that I think anything's going to happen. He's a great guy. And I think that they really are very much in love. And he's very good to her. And I hope they never split up. But I'm thinking about, what if something happens? I want her protected. And marriage is a way to do that. I mean, it is what it is. It shouldn't have to be, but it is. So, for myself, I always said I would never get married again. But the older I get, the more I think, not that I think that opportunity is ever going to come up, but if it should, I would get married again, because I love the idea of that commitment, and to just have that other person. So anyway, that's it.
Two months ago, August the 20th, Chancey and I celebrated our 50th anniversary. Of course, we were just babies when we got together. But one of the things that happened was that we joke about living in sin for 2 years, and then we got Lanier to marry us. Of course, it wasn't legal back then, but he married us because we had decided that we wanted to make a statement to the community, that we wanted people to know that we had made a commitment to each other and to see us as a couple. And that commitment, what that commitment has done for us is that it has helped us through the darkest times of our relationship. And there have been dark times. The fact that I suffer from clinical depression means that Chancey has not had an easy time throughout the years dealing with my mood swings and things like that. On the other hand, Chancey's a Virgo. So I had my own issues that I have to deal with because I'm a Libra and we're very different. But the point is that we made a commitment. When we got married, we said that we would be willing to work through the hard times, that we would be open and talk and be honest with each other. And I think that's, to me, what our marriage, being married, the advantage of that is that even though it's not legal, we decided not to get legally married. We have all of the paperwork done so that, you know, we're both beneficiaries and with everything. So we decided that we didn't really need to be legally married because we were already married. And that commitment, I think, is what has sustained us over these years. And we're still very happy together. It still feels great.
Whoops. I knew that was going to happen. I'm Linda, and I just have to say that I have to speak on the side of the negative at first. I grew up in the... I'm sorry. Okay. I grew up in the time of compulsory marriage for women. You were nobody until you got married. And the society was so goddamn sexist. You know, it really... I fell in love and I married the guy that I fell in love with. I had the commitment, but I didn't want these damn sexists in graduate school to know anything about my personal life. And just wearing a wedding band told them way too much that I did not want them to know. And I would get this crap, when are you going to get married and drop out of school and further your husband's career? And from others, how many children do you want? And if I said I don't want any, boy, the reaction was just shocking. I mean, it was so hostile. I was some sort of freak, some sort of monster. Anyway, it took me such a long time to get over that hostile reaction. I mean, I knew that I wanted the relationship I was in, and I knew that I was committed, and I also knew that I was leaning very heavily on my husband because of the sexism I kept encountering in graduate school. And he was having a hard time coping with me because he didn't feel like he belonged either. So, but anyway, I just have to say something about that because the negative, was just so hard to cope with. And I'm so glad things are much better now. They're certainly not perfect, but they're better. So anyway, I just had to blow off a little steam. So thank you.
That just made me think of something that happened in my life. This is back in the 90s. I had a house. It was about the time that I met this man who I eventually married, Willie. Well, at that time I was in a house with another woman, and we eventually, this is a long story, but eventually we had to do a short sale. And the couple that we did a short sale to came to the house as man and a woman. And they were talking about, this is back in the 90s, so they were talking about a gay couple that they knew, two women. And the woman said, I guess that's okay, but it's so confusing. Which one is going to be the man and which one will be the woman? and so, this whole patriarchal thing that there has to be certain roles depending on the sex you are, So, by the way, Willie and I fell in love. We had no real sense of getting married, but when I got a job, a full-time at Atlanta Tech, Willie had a lot of problems with his mouth, and he was in such incredible pain. We had to deal with this for quite a while until I finally got some health care at Atlanta Tech, and that's when we got married.
Am I audible? Yeah. Whoa. Okay, there's some humor going on here. So, talking about the actual marriage. I was watching The Tonight Show years ago, hosted by Jay, and his guest that night was the stand-up comic Rodney Dangerfield. And Jay, in introducing him, said, "This man is the guru of stand-up comics. He's the one we all go to." Anyway, part of the routine, I can't do it justice, but Rodney was talking about when he and his bride were being married, right? They were in the church. The minister asked him something like, he asked me, do you take this woman, to be your lawfully wedded, blah, 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 all that. So after he asked me that, I said, I do. And he looked at me and he said, you do? Anyway, that was his joke. It was kind of, you do? Okay. I'm not Rodney Dangerfield, but anyhow.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Susan. That concludes our panel.
Thank you. Important announcements before our final song.